and has continued, the tradition has continued over the last 8 years, and this is the 9th actual event that is going to happen this year, is that it became entirely run by volunteers with minimal help from One Step Forward, the nonprofit that runs the Khurana Bose program with the government of India and 50 to 100 universities in the US. And it has grown. Every year, what we have tried to do is invite people who come to the Sci-ROI events, if they have an idea, or even more important, if they have a complaint that, oh, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or you forgot to talk about this, and you could have done that. So what we require, or we request rather, from people, attendees, that if you see a gap, or if you see something that is missing, take the extra step beyond bringing it to our attention, take the extra step and come and fix it, or bring something to life. We provide the platform to do so. Now, the goal of Sci-ROI was, as I started out explaining early on, is to educate both sides, not only people here, the talented individuals who've been trained here, and by here I mean across the globe outside India, right? You just heard Vipul is not from US. About all the opportunities and the future prospective things that are coming online in India, and what the government wants, what their mission is, what the institutions want, and what the industrial now ecosystem is building and requiring of its diaspora, right? But on the other hand, it is also an opportunity to educate the policymakers, directors, decision makers in academia, government, and industry, and funding agencies of what the diaspora actually needs, right? Because there are these aspirational things, and I see that today's focus is on recruitment to IITs. And I can tell you, for the last 15 years, all DGs of IITs keep telling me that they have 60% occupancy, which means 40% vacancy across all IITs. They don't have all the faculty they need and have openings for. And that gap is what Sci-ROI is also trying to fill, not with just people, but also with policies that sometimes stretch the government to its limits, right? By saying, have you considered this opportunity? Have you considered these limitations that are keeping people from coming back or engaging, because people are very interested in engaging? So this dialogue between people who are making decisions and the diaspora that is keen. I mean, the people that you see today here, 167 of them, right, are people who are actually interested, right? Who else gives up a Saturday morning or gives up a Saturday night in India to do this? So we're bringing engaged parties together, and we are trying to see what is needed for people to go back and be successful. And that's how Sci-ROI has continued to grow. New features have come. COVID came in the way. Last time we did this, some of the pictures I saw were from University of Chicago. Really effective event where people, 35 or so people from India came, senior people, and more than 200 local, I mean by US students and postdocs arrived. And after COVID, everything stopped. And so Sci-ROI grew and made this thing virtual, and in doing so, engaged the globe. So it's no longer just the Midwest, US, or in Canada, but now it is the entire globe that is engaged, and we're trying to take the message from India to everybody. And today's speakers, I'm really excited, are junior faculty or people who have started their careers in India and have had now some real world experience on the ground and can advise us, attendees, about what it is like to launch your career in India, what the strengths are, what the pros and the cons are. And so I'm really excited myself to hear about your experiences, the panelists' experiences. And I've encountered some of you before. I recognize many of the names here. So I'm eager to hear whether the expectations you had matched what you saw, what challenges you had, and how did you overcome them. And with that, I'll stop and thank everybody, the volunteers who give up their time and put together these amazing presentations and build these opportunities for the diaspora, and the panelists who are taking the time to share with us their experiences, learnings, and hopefully will help people who are looking for positions in India engage and grow once they go back. With that, I'll stop and thank everyone for the time and the opportunity to talk to you.
Okay, thank you, Asim. Indeed, Sci-ROI has been contributing immensely towards the bridging the gap between the Indian STEM and Indian STEM diaspora. So for our audience, do send us your queries through various social media platforms that we have. That is through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and etc. So now I would request Kamal to kickstart the session.
Thanks, Vipul. Hello, everyone. My name is Kamal Mehrotra. I am a postdoctoral fellow at University of Ottawa Heart Institute and an active member of Sci-ROI leadership team. And as Dr. Asmi mentioned, when we look for opportunities going back to India, there are struggles we are facing, and it's actually at the both sides. Like people also, we don't know what are the challenges in India while they are recruiting people from outside. So Sci-ROI is providing us the opportunity to share all these dialogues without any delay. We want to know how this struggle looks like and what are the actual challenges when people from outside the world, not only from US, but globally wants to apply to India. So I hope this webinar will help us to know what are the struggles and how to overcome them. What is the timeline look like? We hope after this webinar, we have a clear understanding of all these things. Without any delay, I wholeheartedly thank our speakers and panelists to accept our invitation, and I welcome us. We have with us Dr. Abhijit Majumdar from IIT Bombay, Dr. Arjit Sharma from IIT Tirupati, Dr. Anushmita Sahu from IIT Kanpur, and Dr. Shushubin Sen from IIT Gandhinagar. Before moving to a panel discussion and talk, let's have a quick etiquette at the Zoom. I request everyone, to all our viewers, please keep yourself muted. And if you have any questions, please keep your questions in the chat. We'll try to take as many questions as possible in our panel discussion.
Okay,
over
thanks.
to you.
Yeah, thanks, Kamal. So in today's event, we have two sessions. We have two consecutive talks by Dr. Abhijit Majumdar and Dr. Arjit Sharma, and this will be followed by panel discussion. For our audience, kindly hold on to your question, as we are not going to take questions during the talk. So hold them for the panel discussion. And now I will request Abhijit to share his experience with the IIT recruitment process. But before that, allow me to introduce him. So Abhijit did his PhD from IIT Kanpur, and his postdoctoral experience involves 2 years at INSTEM, 1 year at Harvard Medical School, and he's also been DBT Wellcome Trust Indian Alliance Fellow. He joined IIT Bombay in 2014, and his research focuses on understanding the mechanical aspects of tissue control and regulation through cellular behavior and fate. So, yep, Abhijit.
Thank you, Vipul. So, yeah, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Great, yeah. So thank you, Vipul, for this nice introduction, and also thank the Sci-ROI team for this invitation. So unlike, the regular talk, I don't have a slide here, but I think it is better that we can share our journey and the experience. So, Dr. Ansari was talking about the Sci-ROI, and it started in 2015, Chicago. So in the Chicago, they are also, I was there, giving a talk on that time. I just joined IIT Bombay, so I was sharing that, the journey or the experience of someone who just joined, and, how that was. Then Sci-ROI once again invited me for another session. I think that was in 2017 or 18. I don't recall exactly. And now after 9 or 10 years, I am back there again. So hopefully I will be able to add a few things more than, what I did earlier. So the first thing first, and I think Arjit and other panelists will also agree with me, and that I wrote, when I was retweeting this Sci-ROI Twitter, is that one size does not fit all. Okay, so it is not that I can, or Arjit can, or any other panelist can tell you something that is applicable to every place. Okay, each IIT, and I am just kind of confining my talk just within IIT because that is the topic today. Each IIT, they have their own different way of recruitment. Also, inside an IIT, each department has their own way of recruitment, right? And that recruitment policy also changes over time. So it's a very dynamic, a very kind of very different thing. And as I said, that there is not one size fit all is there. However, being said that, I think there are a few things that are generally common, I guess, for everywhere, whenever or wherever you apply. And I would like to kind of touch upon a couple of those points. Also, as I was telling, in last 9 years, now I am this side of the table. So I have seen many of the faculty candidates who applied, who looked very good, on the CV, but then they could not kind of, their application did not go further. So we could get to see, during our faculty meeting, etc., that what are the points that, that someone who is fantastic on CV, but then we did not take their, application forward. And I think that those are the points that I can start discussing here. So although there might be many of the postdocs here, but I would like to start from the PhDs first, right? So I think the first thing first, you need to ask yourself, do you really want to come to academia? And if yes, why? Right? And then if you want to come to IITs, you also need to understand that IIT is primarily a teaching institute, although our research load is, quite substantial. In fact, I will say it is now 50-50, or maybe the research is more than the teaching, but still teaching plays a very important key role here. So until and unless you really enjoy teaching, if you think of teaching as a burden, then probably even if you get here, you will not enjoy your stay here. I see some people who kind of, so that should not happen. And the second thing is that, there are the industry opportunities. And just today only I was seeing on Twitter that in terms of the salary, industry is this high than the academia, right? So why do you want to come to academia? That answer should be very clear to you at the very beginning if you are starting your PhD. Now, if you are coming to the senior PhD, your second, third, fourth year, I think that you need to think of which are my target institutes. And when you think of your target institutes, as I was talking about, IITs, ICERs, IISc, the central laboratories, they all have their own flavor, right? So you need to think of that where you fit well or where do you want to go. Then suppose if you decide you want to join IIT, then again in IITs, there are two kind of categories that has become, unfortunately, there's the new IITs and the old IITs, and they have a little different kind of, because if you join a new IIT, you have to accept this fact that you will take part in the institute building. So if you are not keen to do those admin work, institute building, department building, the starting the curriculums, etc., then again, you should not go there. Now, whichever IIT you choose, that okay, these are my dream IITs, or here I would like to go. Then what you need to do, you need to go back and look whom they are recruiting in last few years and what are their profile. Okay, that will, so, and I'm talking about when you are in your PhD itself, that will give you an idea that what kind of profile you may need to finally kind of reach there. Okay, I can give you a very small kind of example, not example, anecdote, I would say, that so for me, for some reason, it is just sheer luck. I'm not bragging or anything, but I always wanted to join IIT Bombay Chemical Engineering till my undergrad days. After my MTech, I did from IIT Kharagpur. I applied for PhD to IIT Kanpur, IIT Bombay, IIT Roorkee. I got interview call from all three places. And then someone told me IIT Bombay does not recruit their own PhD student. They don't do inbreeding. And I did not even come for the IIT Bombay interview. I said, okay, if they are not taking their own PhD, I am not doing PhD from there, because I want to go there as faculty. So, okay, so that's an anecdote. That's not always true or something. It is just sheer kind of, coincidence. But what I'm trying to say here is that you need to look and plan well ahead, that what is the requirement, okay? What kind of postdoctoral training they may need. Not all IITs need the postdoctoral training. Some people even take fresh PhD, right? So some places you can see people join after 1 year of PhD. So those things you need to keep in mind. Another very important parameter here is that age. Unfortunately, I don't agree with that policy, but the policy is that if you're applying fresh, you should be below 35. So keep that planning in mind, that for how many years you should do your postdoc before you apply, right? Then more what we all will discuss during our panel discussion. Then you know that, okay, this is my age, this many years of postdoc I can do. You go for the postdoc, but you keep on researching on your dream institutes, and you look for what are the kind of research profile those people who are there they have. And here I'm telling you that what I was telling, that with a very good profile. I mean, I can't name here, but fantastic profile, but we could not take that application forward. Why? Because we had already 8 faculty members who are working in that area. Some of them we have recruited in a recent past. We will not take another person in the same area just now, because we don't want 4 of our newly recruited faculty compete with each other in the same, same domain. So meaning is, but does that mean that if your dream place is IIT Bombay and your research area is something that a lot of the people here, so does that mean you cannot apply? No. The mean is that when you are going for your postdoc, you plan your postdoc in such a way that you can position yourself during your application, and you can clearly show what value addition you are going to do to the department. And here you have to bring a very, very intricate balance, that if you are proposing something that is absolutely far away from the department, your chance goes down. If you're proposing something that is a huge overlap with the existing research of the department, your chance goes down. You need to propose your research proposal in a sweet spot where there are not many people working in the department, but at the same time, you can show how you will able to collaborate with others, so that the department will be benefited by recruiting you. So I tell to my students also that it may sound a bit bad, but the thing is that it is like, we go to the shopping mall, we go to buy, say my plan was to buy a jeans, but I returned by buying a t-shirt and shirt and jeans and the sunglasses, just because the salesperson convinced me that I need those items. Here, you are the commodity, you are the salesperson. So you need to convince the recruitment panel that why they need you. And I have a couple of more points, but I think we can discuss that later. I will stop here. But before stopping there, I would like to tell one more thing. And the last thing is that after application, if your application does not kind of, get accepted, or it get kind of, rejected at whatever step, whatever stage, please remember that does not reflect upon your caliber or your capability. It just shows that this is not the right match at this moment. It is not that, say, as I say, that if today I would have applied with my same CV to IIT Bombay, probably I will not get through. But that point of time, it was the perfect match. So with this, I will stop here. We can have the further discussion, etc. Just to kind of bullet point what I have discussed. Plan early. Do your research on your dream institutes. And number 3, if your application gets rejected, don't take that personally. It is just that not the right time, right place. That's all. Thank you for now.
Thanks, Dr. Majumdar. I think it was really an enlightening talk. Now our viewers know what is the difference between, when you apply for new IITs and the old IITs, so that we can expect how to prepare ourselves for both places. Without any delay, I would like to move to our next speaker, Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma did his PhD from Raman Research Institute, Bangalore. After that, he possessed extensive postdoctoral experience from University of Paris, National University of Singapore, University of Sussex, UK, Helmholtz Institute, Mainz, Germany. After that, he joined Department of Physics at IIT Tirupati in 2018, and his research focus is on experimental atomic physics and quantum optics using precise lesion spectroscopy. Dr. Sharma, the stage is all yours.
Yeah, hello, good evening, good morning to everybody who is attending this session. And I thank Sci-ROI and its organizing team for giving this opportunity to share my views on some of the issues that concern recruitment at IITs. So I think the tone of the discussion has been set very well by my senior Abhijit Da. So Abhijit Da was incidentally my senior at IIT Kanpur. He was doing his MTech at that time. I was doing my MSc. And then we also had an overlap at Bangalore because he was in NCBS. And I used to come to NCBS because NCBS canteen was fantastic. It's very well known for its food, right? So intermittently, we have been in touch, and I have been following his advice, his inputs in how to apply for faculty positions in India. So I think whatever he has suggested so far is an excellent insight into how you should plan your application. Now, coming to my personal experience, so when I was doing my postdoc in UK, this was in 2015-16, I started actively considering putting applications for the faculty positions in India. And I did not put in specifically too many applications to the research institutes. That was personal preference. I was mostly focusing on the IITs. And again, as far as the IITs are concerned, as Abhijit mentioned, there is now this hierarchy or categorical division between the first gen and the second gen IITs and the third gen new IITs, like for instance, IIT Tirupati, where I am working right now. So what I understood through the application process is that, and I had interacted with some of the HODs prior to my application. I had given some seminars, invited seminars in some of the respective departments I was interested in. And what I got to know, at least from interacting with some of the HODs, and again, this is specifically with the subject I'm talking about, physics. Okay, I cannot vouch for other departments. I cannot say this is applicable to other subject domains as well. But as far as physics was concerned, my interaction with some of the HODs during that time at some of the IITs, I came to know that they had some kind of a rough cutoff limit in terms of the pedigree, where you did your PhD from, what kind of work you did in your PhD, how many publications you had. So they had some kind of a minimum number in mind, roughly. So basically, if you were below that number, no matter how good you did your presentation, they would not consider you. Okay, as simple as that. So I think, again, this is, as I said, this is, as Abhijit said, this is very dynamic. This is going to change per year, per department, per vacancy. Okay. So, and also, the statistics of recruitment are also not very encouraging. So, for instance, we depending on the vacancies, okay, typically per vacancy, even in a new IIT like us, we receive about 300 applications. Okay. And that's a staggering number. How do you judge a single person out of 300? That's like, it's a Herculean task. I mean, you will be bound by some limitation or the other in judging the best candidate for a single vacancy out of 300 odd applications. That's a very difficult job, right? And even though we have the best intention in mind, at some point we are limited by our capabilities, and we have to follow a certain protocol that we set aside after discussion with experts, with the department, and come up with some kind of a policy how to screen the applications. Again, this policy changes time to time depending on what the vacancies are, how many vacancies the institute is giving us, and what the areas of interest to the department are. So as Abhijita rightly said, let's say you have a very good CV, you have a very good pedigree, maybe you did your PhD at some of the top universities in the US, but if there's already a person who has been recruited by the department in the recent past, then your chances of getting accepted in that same area in the department are very low. So I think before you start blindly applying to the IITs, it would be a good way to actually look at the department, look at the focus areas, possibly talk to some of the faculty members or even the HOD, try to understand what their vision about the department is and whether your research background fits in their vision or not. Because unless that fits in the vision, even if you apply, probably your application will not be very attractive to them, because they will say, okay, we already have a person or maybe a couple of persons already in that area. So why consider a third person, even though he or she may be extremely good? So that, I think, that homework needs to be done. And, I think going through the profiles of the existing faculty who have been recruited in the past 6-7 years, that also gives you a very good insight into what are the kind of profiles probably the institute is looking at or the department is looking at, and whether your CV is in the same league, so to say. Okay, so like, can you stand and can you really take a call whether your CV is as good as the guys who got recruited in the last 5-6 years, right? And if you can take an honest call on that, then definitely if there is a prospective area where the department is not having a faculty, then definitely you should try and put an application to that. Now, coming to the vacancies, as Professor Ansari was saying, that we have this usual notion that there's existing a large number of vacancies. In fact, when I was outside India and I was to see these media reports, I was saying, what is wrong? Because there's so many vacancies. Why can't people get employed, right? What's the problem, right? There's no shortage of talent. Especially in the sciences, people are doing postdoc after postdoc after postdoc. Look at the amount of experience the science departments, the applications which are received by some of the science department, let's say physics, chemistry, maths. This staggering level of experience and amazing CVs. Okay, there's no two ways about it. And I can honestly say that whatever I've seen from the CVs of the engineering departments versus the CVs of the science departments CVs are, in a different league, completely in a different league. Okay, the reason is because the industry has a very lucrative opening for an engineering PhD. So what happens is there is no incentive for an engineering PhD. So to say, do a postdoc and spend another 3-4 years in that domain and finally land up an academic job. He would rather earn a lot of money, okay, and probably be more satisfied job-wise by engaging in some R&D division in an industry, right? But with the sciences, probably the job market is not that great in India. So what happens is you get exceptional candidates with very high caliber CVs, very high caliber publications. And then when we are trying to shortlist candidates, it becomes an increasingly very, very challenging job. How do we choose the best candidate out of 300 odd applications, right? So what I would say is that, when you look at all these reports, there are three things you got to understand. First is, typically the IITs follow a 1:10 student to faculty ratio. In some IITs, maybe it's 1:12, 1:13, but more or less the typical student to faculty ratio is like 10 students is to one faculty. Now, if let's say in an IIT like us, we have about 1400 students, so one would expect like 140 faculty to be in our IIT, right? But if you look at, and this is very easy to find nowadays because we are doing this NIRF data, you can quickly go to the institute website, look at the NIRF data and see how many faculty are there on the list, okay? And you can judge what is the number of effective vacancies. Now, while you may, you know that there are possible vacancies, but again, there are other policy issues that have to be taken at the government level. The positions need to be cleared by the ministry before the IIT can float an advertisement. Okay, so it's not like just because we have the capacity to take 140 faculty, we can float an advertisement just out of the blue like that. It doesn't happen like that. Okay, there are several stages of approvals needed before the IIT can officially float a recruitment advertisement. Okay, and there are several channels of approvals that are needed at the ministry level, at the governing body level, at the BOG level. Okay, before the final number of openings are decided, and then again these number of openings are perhaps distributed according to the needs of some of the departments. So some department will get a few more openings compared to some other department, and that always happens. So once that application or that advertisement comes up, typically you will see either some focus areas given, or it may be a very open advertisement, like all areas. Okay, you may have seen something like this in some of the faculty recruitment advertisement, right? So if it's a specific area, then I think the chances are higher for a good candidate of that background, okay, to apply and probably crack the application. Okay, when it is an open to all, then it can become little bit challenging, because even in physics, I know, for instance, some areas the publication rates are higher compared to the other areas. So even in physics, there is this issue that not all the areas are able to publish papers at a very high rate. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. You have to weigh in that factor when you put an application. And as Abhijit said, right, if your application doesn't process beyond a certain point, it's not that it is a shortcoming on your application. It's probably because it was not perhaps a great fit or great match to the needs of the department. So that is something I think we should consider. So again, coming to the typical interview formats that are perhaps employed in some of the institutions in India. Typically, there is a possibility that you may get called for an initial seminar, and then formally you get called for the interview. That is one way. The other way is that, okay, you don't need to give any pre-seminar. You can directly come for the interview, and maybe the interview spans over 2 or 3 days. Okay, and there is a panel of experts invited. So the IITs give a lot of emphasis on teaching. So you need to be a good communicator. And I totally agree with Abhijit that sometimes we look at a CV and we think, oh, this guy is going to be an excellent fit. Okay, but then when we communicate with him, or he tries to communicate some subject, okay, as a training exercise, like how well he can communicate that particular subject to a prospective batch of students, we find that perhaps there is not that effectiveness in the communication part. Okay, and since IITs are primarily an undergraduate institution, there is a lot of emphasis on good teaching. So yes, research is also an integral part, but teaching is also taking a very important part of our job activities. Okay, so that I think one needs to take a call whether you would like to enjoy. For instance, typically you may teach about 2 courses a semester, maybe 1 lab, 1 theory, or 2 theory or 2 lab, like that. Okay, and then there are these admin jobs, what Avijitda was saying, especially in a growing institution like IIT Tirupati. There is a lot of opportunity to contribute towards institute development, towards department development, towards curriculum development, towards faculty recruitment. So many opportunities are there. Whether you enjoy it or not is a personal matter. I will say it differs from person to person. Some of my colleagues enjoy it. Some of my colleagues take it a little bit reluctantly. It is a totally personal matter. Okay, but yes, these things need to be done. Okay, because this is a growing institution. It will need all the expertise that the faculty can contribute. Okay, so I think the overall application process may span from a few months to maybe 6-7 months, depending on how the institute or the department is thinking about the recruitment process. So I think patience is the key. Okay, and also time is very important, right? Because this golden number of 35 years, that's like an artificial barrier that has been put by most of the IITs. And the rationale behind that number is that you are expected to put 30 years of service in minimum. So you are retiring at the age of 65 years typically. So if you get employed below 35, then only you are able to contribute 30 years of service to the institution. So that is typically expected of any central government employee. So that is where this golden number of 35 comes. I mean, that is my interpretation. Maybe there are some other interpretations, but this is what I typically understand from studying different documents related to recruitments. So this is what I would like to add at this point. And if there are further questions connected specifically to the recruitment process, then I would like to take those questions up in the panel discussion round. So with that, I like to end my overview on the recruitment at IITs, and I hope this gives some indication, some insight as to where to start applications, how to start the application, who are the right people to talk to. Okay, and how can you so-called crack the interview. Okay, how do you go about this? Okay, so with that, I once again thank all the panelists for giving this opportunity to present my views and share my thoughts on this process. Hope this was useful. But as I mentioned, I think Abhijit rightly mentioned that it's not like one size fits all, right? Depending on the department, depending on the IIT, depending on the interest of the institute, the recruitment criteria changes very, very dynamically. Even within the same year, 2 recruitment rounds may have drastically different requirements. Okay, so you need to appreciate the constraints under which we work. Okay, and before I joined the IIT system, I had this idea that probably somehow I had this impression that probably the institutes were not willing to recruit people. All this media news that vacancies are there, blah blah blah, all hogwash. Okay, complete hogwash. But now when I have entered the system, I realized that no, there are genuine issues. Okay, there are specific limitations. Okay, like this faculty student ratio, then the limitation about the government or the ministry sanctioning positions for the institution. Like, let's say if there is an opening for 500 positions in IIT Kharagpur, can you can imagine the financial burden it's going to put, right? So the government has to think twice. Should we give a green signal for all 500 positions at once, right? So this is something that the government also understands, right? And
Arijit, I'm afraid we need to stop now because our
sure,
panelists are here, so we don't want to keep them waiting.
Sure.
So thank you so much, and I really apologize to stop you because
No, it's fine. It's fine.
really engaging, and
Yes,
I would have loved to you would have loved to continue, but we can take we can talk to you more in the panel discussion. I'm sure we already have a lot of questions, so yeah, we'll have a lot of opportunities to interact. And thanks again. And now we will go to the panel discussion. But before going there, can I request all of our participants to just switch on their camera. We just want to take a screenshot of this webinar so that we can have it. Like we have a lot of participants, and yeah, smile please, and someone, Janani, go ahead and take a screenshot. Is it done? Okay, I'm assuming it's done. Okay, so
I guess Dr. Abhijit wants to say something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, Bhashati, sorry to kind of. Just a request to all the participants, when you are, putting the question, if you put one question at a time, it is easier for us to answer in the chat box. Too many questions, it kind of, become a difficult. So if you have multiple questions, put multiple questions separately. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhijit. Thanks for being so interactive. So we'll now move to a panel discussion. I'll just repeat the Zoom etiquettes. Please keep your microphones muted. And if you want to ask anything, ask in the chat box. We'll try to take as many questions as we can. And then try to focus your questions, frame your questions in minimum number of sentences so that it's it doesn't take a long time to read the question. And try to be focused. Don't go just try to avoid personal or controversial questions. And we briefly try to focus your question on the 3 themes, which is the recruitment process, number 1. Number 2 is the job application materials. And number 3 is the challenges after joining. So try to frame your questions in these themes. And then before starting the discussion, of course, we will let you know about our panelists. So over to you, Kamal and Vipul.
Kamal,
you are muted.
Yeah, Kamal will take it forward.
Kamal, you are muted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the panelists, we have with us Dr. Anushmita Sahu. Dr. Sahu received her PhD from IIT Bangalore. After the PhD, she joined postdoctoral fellow at Emory University. After finishing her postdoc, she joined as assistant professor in IIT Kanpur in 2022. Her research is focused on engineering proteins as cost-effective vaccine candidates against different emerging viral pathogens using computational and combinatorial biology.
Okay. Yeah, so the next panelist is Dr. Pallavi Bharadwaj. She's just joined IIT Gandhinagar in 2022. She did her PhD from IIT Bangalore and then moved on to do her postdoctoral research at MIT. And her current research focuses on engineering optimized solution for global energy needs.
Finally, we have with us Dr. Shushoben Sen. Dr. Sen completed his PhD from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. After the PhD, he joined postdoctoral fellow at University of Pittsburgh. Later, he joined IIT Gandhinagar in 2022 as assistant professor in civil engineering department. His research is focused on experimental and computational characterization of pavements and studying local climate effects on it. We'll start our panel discussion now. But before moving to panel discussion, I would like to I'd like to give a message to our viewers. If you have any questions, you can please put your question in the chat. We'll try to take as many questions as possible. And I would also like to request our speakers and panelists, if you can answer some of the questions in the chat, it would be really great. So let's start with the first question. We have a question from Devdatta Rai. She's asking, is there a requirement for the minimum number of publications to get into the IIT? Can any of you would like to shed a light on if there is the number of publications required to get into IIT?
I'll give this a shot because there are many questions recurring on this theme. Let me state emphatically, the minimum requirements are what's stated in the ad. You must have a PhD, you must have a bachelor's in so on. So that's it. There is no other secret that's going on. Everything else is subjective. There's no objective cutoff. So is there a minimum number? Well, it depends on your field. If you're in mathematics and you have 3 papers, that might be a great number. If you're in, I don't know, experimental structural engineering and you have 2 papers, that's 10. So people who are doing the recruitment are in your field, hopefully. They know what is a reasonable number. In fact, I would say most of the time what we see in the applications is not that there are too few papers. It's that there are too many papers. And then it becomes highly questionable what exactly the contribution was. I mean, if you're publishing 20 papers in 5 years, I really have to think what happened over there. So if there are lots of questions going around, if I have a PhD from Anna University, I saw that a question there. The minimum requirements are what's stated in the ad. Period. There's no other secret. Everything else, you have to be good in what you do. There is no objective number that anybody can do.
So does anyone of you want to add into it, Dr. Abhijit? Do you want to
No,
add
I think what Dr. Sen said is correct. There is, depending on the field, it depends on the number of applications, minimum publications that one would expect. So, for instance, if you are in a field like condensed matter physics, typically you would expect at least 20 publications, at least 20. Because what I've seen over the last few years is that typically condensed matter physics applicants come with a large number of publications. So the default cutoff somewhere lies between 15 and 20.
And Dr. Pallavi, would you like to shed some light if you have some ideas in your area? Dr. Pallavi? Okay, I think
maybe.
I am
maybe
here. I'm sorry. There's a network issue going on. I have a celebration going on in my house, so I'm so sorry. But yes, I completely agree with Sushobhan that it totally depends on the field in which you are. For example, in a domain like power electronics or electrical machines, where it takes a lot of time for people to do experiments and publish. But what is more important than the quantity is the quality of the publications, right? So they would see what is the impact of your work, especially in a place like IIT Gandhinagar, which was the only place where I interviewed because I only applied here in India. I saw that they were really interested in things that made an impact in the world. They were not really interested that you have 1,000 publications, but if you have 20, those 20 are really going to change the world, you know. So definitely quality over quantity. There is certainly, I agree with the previous speaker also, there's a minimum number that is kind of a threshold. For example, if you have just one publication, that would be a red flag also, unless it is something like Nature, you know, it changed the field or something. So definitely quality over quantity, but it should be some good number. It should not be like very, very low. That's something I would like to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Pallavi. So I'd like to go ahead with the next question. I see Apurva, you have raised. Oh, Abhijit, yeah, sorry.
Just one point I would want to add here, that as everyone said, that the field kind of it depends on field. In chemical engineering, 3 to 5 is a good number, right? But at the same time, when you have the more, say like the 5, 6, 7 numbers of papers, we also look at the coherency of your publication. Is it that you are publishing in all with the multiple people and just something here and something there, or how you are developing the field? as a specialist. So that also kind of matters. So as I think Arijit or Shushavan said, that it is very subjective after the minimum point. But yes, it is there.
Thanks, Abhijit. Thank you so much. So the next question we have from here, Himadri Shekhar Sarkar. And Anushmita, if you would like to answer this question as you're like a fresh journey. So what are the major points of a good teaching plan and future research plan? Can you give us some key points that you like kept in mind while framing the teaching plan and research plan?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Sci-ROI for giving me a chance to share my experience. So coming to this question, I think research plan for me in the Department of Biological Science in IIT Kanpur, the research proposal is very important. So, and it should, they see how you evolve as a scientist in the research proposal. So it should involve ideas which will add how you can use your PhD and your postdoc experience together and think of new ideas in your future projects. So that I think is very key. It should not only be an extension of your postdoctoral work. So how different is your research proposal from your postdoctoral work? And you should think of something as a long-term goal, like how, what kind of contribution what contribution you'll do to the society in the long term, or how you'll be known in future to the scientific community. So you have to keep these things in mind when you are writing the research proposal. So that is based on my experience. And coming to the teaching plan, the teaching plan should align with the research which you have gained experience in. And so when you're delivering the lecture, so you should be saying something you are very confident about. So yeah, so that's it.
Thanks, Anushmita. Thank you so much. And we also have we will go ahead with the next question. Okay, this one is from Sushil Kumar. Do IITs consider candidates who are already a faculty at any other NITs in India? Okay, so the answer is yes. As I see everyone nodding their heads. So this is a simple, yeah. So this is a simple question and simple answer. So yeah. So the next one is from Sushmita. How is postdoc in Asian countries viewed as compared to the postdoc from USA? Interesting. So who wants to take it? Arijit or
I can share my views. So I don't think there's like any bias against whether you did your postdoc in the US versus you did your postdoc in Japan. As long as the work leads to some good publications that you have contributed to actively, I think that is what matters. Okay, it really matters which lab or which university you did the postdoc from, because if it's a Nature publication, who cares? I mean, really, it doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Arijit.
Kamal, I mean, some nice coincidence is that all four of us present here, we did our PhD from India. So
that's nice.
Yeah, that's
the telling point, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so we have the next question from Prodipto. If I previously applied in an IIT department and was not successful in the final round interview process, but they advertise similar research field again, is it possible to be considered for the shortlisting once again in the same department? What's your view on this, Shushavan? What do you think?
I'd say yes, there's nothing wrong, but then you should consider why you didn't make it last time. Sometimes it has to do with more interpersonal issues that you just didn't get along with a lot of people. That can be more difficult, but sometimes it could just be that, yeah, you didn't have a great research plan or your presentation didn't go very well. So you should improve on it. So if you look at the rules, there's nothing stopping you from applying again. But you should definitely try to improve what you did. Otherwise, well, people remember when you came last time. So the history will come back.
Thanks, Shushavan. So the next one is from Neeraj Raghuraman. Besides publications, what other aspects of CV are keenly looked at, like awards, postdoctoral grants, and so and so? Anushmita, do you want to talk about it?
So in the CV, I think my experience, the research proposal is the key. And then when you are coming for the interview, your personality, whether you match with the colleagues there. So that is very important, whether, if they would like to collaborate with you, whether there's ease of that collaboration. So that is very important. And you should also have that ease in collaborating with them. And I think your presentation, that's also very important, whether you're clear in your plans and in your fundamentals. Yeah, so we have seen many candidates who have very good track record, very good publications. So, but they're very shaky when you come to the fundamentals. So, because here you'll be teaching UG students, PG students, so that is very important. Plus, research also wants clear in fundamentals. So, I think all these things are very important.
Okay,
and in the
thanks.
field of adding, since I'm from the field of biology and it takes a lot of time, for the publications. So I think adding like more than the quantity is the quality of research. And even if you have like first author papers, like what is new that you're bringing to that field? So that is important. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So now I'll take the question related to the theme 2, as in what influences the success of your application. So I believe there will be a number of criteria, as some of you already mentioned, number of publication, long-term research goal. So I'll just compile question from some of our candidates, that is Sushil and Abhiram. So one question is, does percentage in high school matters? Because at the end, in IIT, you are going to either do research or teaching. And some of candidate can be a late bloomer, as in, they start doing well during their bachelor's, master's, and so on. So how does that impact the application success, high school percentage?
Yeah, I don't know if it is common everywhere, but at least here I know that it's 50% throughout.
Okay.
No, I don't think it matters. I don't think, because the minimum eligibility requirement specified in the job recruitment advertisements, there is no mention of the high school percentage.
Okay. I think Anusmita's voice is breaking. So I'll go to the next question. So let's say, so some of us already mentioned that this PhD number, you should have good profile in PhD, postdoc, so that you meet this 35 age cutoff. So Abhiram asked, how about if someone has took longer years during PhD period? And because PhD is just a training, so is there any plan for IITs to consider this factor, that PhD training is not up to the PhD candidate? So how do you normalize that for the recruitment process? Do you think, is there something going to be considered by IITs? I'm sure you guys are not the policymakers, but does that kind of discussion happen? I think that's what they mean.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
so I can try to answer that. Yes, this 35, which is this number that keeps floating around in most of the job advertisements. But I think specifically of late, over the past 3-4 years, I have seen advertisements where they have relaxed the age relaxation even for the general candidates. So possibly even if you're like 36 or 37, you may still make it, right? But yes, I think 37 is probably the upper limit for the general category, right? You are from a reserved background, then probably you will get some relaxation on that number of 35 or 37, whatever is there for the general category candidate. As per
so 35 is the preferred cutoff, but there could be exceptions up to 37 years.
Yes.
So maybe I'll move to the next question then. So next important. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah,
I just
go
want
ahead.
to add one that in many of the places, women candidates also get a bit of relaxation depending on the situation.
Great.
So I would also like to add here, so if a candidate is good, so they consider the application.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Thanks,
we actually in civil engineering, we have exactly somewhat of a situation like this. And at least what I was told by the coordinator is 35 is a recommendation, but if it's a good candidate, we will work around it.
Okay, so next question is related to letter of recommendations. So let's say if we compare the different criteria, that is minimum number of publications, long-term proposal. I would presume that during the faculty recruitment application, they do ask for long-term research proposal. So that and letter of recommendations, which of these factor plays important role? As in, let's say some of the candidate has some compromise on PhD part, or let's say on letter of recommendation. So I mean, there are cases where during the PhD tenure or postdoc tenure, you don't get along with your PI. So it can influence. It's not that the candidate is bad, but sometimes things can go wrong. So how does that affect, or do IITs consider that aspect also?
I can take a shot at this. We had somewhat of a situation like this. I would say the whole package that you present matters. It seems very unlikely to be the situation where you did not get along with your PhD advisor to the extent they won't give you a recommendation letter, and yet published a great research and did very well. The two don't happen separately.
I believe.
But I would add, it depends on the entire profile. But if we get an application with a PhD advisor, and if the postdoc was for longer than a year, then the postdoc supervisor, if they are not in the recommended list, it starts bringing up questions, why not? And then it makes us worry on what exactly happened. So these two people, your PhD and postdoc, they're important to be there.
So let me put it that way. Let's say, at least I have some personally come across a few examples where some of the PhD advisors are, let's say, not so gentle, to put it mildly. So in that case, but they have good, they have good terms with their postdoc supervisor, and good number of publication as well, quality and quantity wise. So in that case, do IIT consider these exceptional cases? Okay, there could be a possibility that the PhD advisor was not, so if candidate specifically mentioned that. Do you think it's something?
So I say if candidate goes back to what I said, if the overall package seems good, that if I see the candidate seems good and is competent and can do well in the future, fine. Other things might be set aside. If everything you said is true, then yes, stuff happening with the PhD advisor, that might be.
Thanks, Shushavan. So we were moving to our next question. This is from Abhiram. So he asked that longer PhD durations, does it affect the application negatively? Arijit, yes.
Yeah, so let me try to answer that question, because when I joined my supervisor's lab at the Raman Institute, Bangalore, I was his first student. So I was technically building the lab, and I had the help of some other students who joined subsequently with me, and then a few years down the line, right? So my PhD duration was well over 6 years. And yes, there are pitfalls, but there are also positive sides to it, because you learn so much when you are building a new lab. So when you are joining a new institute like for IIT Tirupati, where you are starting everything from scratch, that experience really comes in handy, because you have been in that situation. You know how to tune the system. You have worked in the system. You know how things work, okay, how to get the job done, right? So that experience is very valuable in such scenarios. So there are positive and negative sides to it. Yes, you could have probably joined the job a couple of years earlier. But again, that experience is invaluable, because if everything has been very smooth in your life so far, and you end up in a place like IIT Tirupati, which can give you its own challenges, you may be a little bit taken aback by some of the challenges it presents, right? So I think it has both positive and negative sides to it.
Okay, thanks a lot, Arijit. So the bottom line should be like what you did in the long PhD, right? Like, what are your experiences? Is it just that you wasted time, or you really made use of the time? Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
I want to add to this.
Anushmita, yeah, please, sure.
So sometimes in the interview, if your PhD or your postdoc, the time is long, they will also ask you to justify why it took long.
Why?
And yeah, so if you can justify it well, convince them, it's fine.
Okay, that's nice to hear for the ones with longer PhDs like me as well. Okay, so next question is from Neeraj Raghuraman. I'm a doctoral student where my undergrad is from mechanical engineering, while my entire research work is in biomed or biomechanics. Can I apply to biomed or biotech department? Anushmita, do you want to answer this question?
Yes, I think they welcome this interdisciplinary applications, like from engineering departments who want to contribute to biology. They are highly recommended, especially in IITs. So please apply.
Abhijit or Arijit, do you want to share your views on like people who are having like diverse backgrounds, and if they are more inclined to?
Okay, so that's a good point, actually. And I have seen, again, both the negative and the positive side to it. It purely depends on the institute department and the institute director, how well he is promoting this kind of interdisciplinary recruitment. Because most of the time, what happens is when you are looking from the department HOD perspective, he's thinking, okay, I have to float this course next semester. If I don't take a faculty from this background, my course will be in trouble. So his hiring gets influenced in that way. Okay. But I think from the dean faculty or the director perspective, they have a much more holistic view, and they know that, okay, maybe initially it might seem like a bit of a hiccup, but getting such kind of diverse background people in the department will only enrich the department in the near future, or also in the long run. So there is probably, I would say, there is always a tendency to recruit people from a particular background. Let's say you are in mechanical engineering, they would expect BTech in mechanical, MTech in mechanical, PhD in mechanical, like that. Okay, but then there are pitfalls to this kind of a process. Okay, and I think the institutes are realizing it, and they are changing their recruitment policy to tune and accommodate more interdisciplinary candidates.
Okay,
thank you.
Thanks, Arijit. Yeah, Abhijit, go ahead.
Yeah, so as I think Arijit and also Anushmita said that yes, the answer is yes. So if I also, there is a difference between where you are applying. If the department is a new department, and then they will need people to teach the BTech courses, right? So then they will look for the people from that background. In contrast, if I think of the IIT Bombay Chemical Engineering, we have 40 plus faculty members, 45 faculty members. We have electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, chemistry, material science, bioscience, whatnot, right? So that is one point. And the second point, I think Shushavan mentioned once, is that it is also about the package, right? And I also mentioned, during my talk, that how you are selling yourself. I can just, again, another anecdotal thing that so I did my PhD, BTech in chemical engineering, MTech in cryogenic engineering and doing the simulation, PhD in microfluidic adhesion, more like material science, and then postdoc in the stem cell biology. So when I gave my faculty talk here, someone from the audience, the faculty, he asked me that, so Abhijit, you have changed your field so many times, will you be able to teach our BTech courses? And my answer to him was that, if you think of that I have to teach the mass transfer tomorrow, obviously I will not be able to teach, particularly if you compare with someone who has done the mass transfer in BTech, MTech, PhD, postdoc. Obviously that person knows mass transfer much better than me. But looking at my BTech result, you should understand that if you give me enough time, I will be able to teach any subject. Also, if you look throughout my journey, you will realize that I have taken up new things every point, and I have done reasonably well, meaning that I can handle the new thing. And finally, as you can see, I have done the various different things. So if you are looking for someone who can, connect the dots, who can build an interdisciplinary research, you should take me. But if you are looking for someone specialized in a particular chemical engineering subject, you should not consider my application. So, you also need to have a clarity of mind that what you are going to offer to that department. Thank you.
Shushabhan?
If I can just add, so at IIT Gandhinagar, and I'm sure other IITs might have this, there is the concept of a dual appointment. So we have many faculty who have a primary affiliation and a secondary affiliation, including the head of my department actually. In that case, usually the decision for your primary appointment depends where will you teach your undergraduate classes. And then your secondary one might be more aligned towards your research interest or maybe graduate level courses. So that's also an option that exists.
Yeah. Anushmita, you also raised your hand. So do you want to add?
Yeah, so in biology, based on the requirements, so we have many faculties who are also affiliated to electrical engineering and computer science, who do like bioinformatics related work and neuroscience related work. So it depends, all depends how your work complements the vision of the department and how much you will add to that. So I think what previously all the panels had discussed, looking at the faculty profiles and how your research proposal or how your interest, work plan will fit into that. That's very important.
Okay. Abhijit, I think you raised, yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so kind of taking from the Shushavan's point further is that, so if you are, say, you are not from mechanical engineering, but you are applying to the, a mechanical engineering department or vice versa, in your teaching plan, and that question came up also in the chat, you also need to put a teaching plan in such a way that you can show that, okay, these are the courses of the UG that I can take, and these are the courses in the PG that I can take. These are the electives that I can offer, which are not present at this moment. So you also need to make your teaching plan in such a way that you can prove your value to the department.
Okay.
Particularly if you are coming from a different background.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes. Okay, thanks, Abhijit. And Kamal, over to you.
In the same context, I have a similar question from Zahini. So she asked if the experience from R&D after the postdoc has any positive effect in getting into IITs. So if someone has experience from R&D industry sector after getting the experience from postdoc, does it help in getting into IIT, or how does it look like? So, Dr. Subersin Sam, do you want to?
So in my field, it's a little bit, because industry doesn't do a lot of research in civil engineering, but I would say ultimately the criteria is the same. Are you publishing? Are you doing research after your PhD? Where you did it, really, it doesn't matter.
But mostly, I think in R&D sector, especially in industry, they don't publish. So I think
it depends. In computer science, industry does publish quite a lot. I say you could argue computer science does more publishing than a lot of
Okay. Yeah. So
I can talk from like our department Recruit Plus in the process. We have seen that so industry people, we understand that they don't publish, but then we look for some patent application or something, right? Something that they can substantiate that yes, they are doing some useful research. Just the claim obviously will not.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dr. Anishmita Sahu, do you want to add something?
Yeah, so so there was one faculty who had joined this one company long time in the R&D sector, and then he moved as a faculty position. So I think what Dr. Sen told is what is important is your research. So that is the key, where you did your PhD and postdoc and all. So that doesn't matter.
Okay. That's good idea. Like if someone is going to R&D, they need to make sure that they would have patents to show something in your application. So moving on to the next question, we have next question from Abhiksha. So she's asking, what is your research? What if your research area is not being pursued at IITs? Will your application or research proposal will be considered? I guess she wants to ask if it is a new research area that is not already being carried out in IIT. So will your application will be considered as a positive?
Even better if it's a new area.
Definitely.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. As you already mentioned, you can go ahead.
The thing is that if you are proposing something that needs a huge infrastructure or something that might not be possible from, for the institute to provide that point of time, that may be go against your application. Otherwise, it is a definite positive. Yes.
Okay. So anyone want to add something into this question? If not, I'm moving to the next question. There is a question from Chaitanya. So he's asking, does maintaining a good variability in your research between PhD and postdoc help? So I guess
I would answer it comes back to the same thing. Variability can mean different things in different areas, but when you're presenting yourself at the interview and in your application, can you show a coherent body of research with some overarching idea, and then can you show how you're going to extend that as a faculty for the rest of your career? Within that, if you happen to do different projects which on the face of it seem quite different, but you can explain how you use skills one from the other, it's perfectly fine. So nobody goes by just purely the title.
Dr. Sahu, do you want to add something? Because you are from biology, and if somebody is from different fields, like her PhD is from different and postdoc, how IITs would look like to that application?
So I think it doesn't matter until unless like how you present it, like the coherency. So that is so the way you present, how you add your PhD and your postdoc work together in your long-term plans. So if you are able to present well and convince the panel, then that's good.
Dr. Arijit, do you have something to add?
So may I give a kind of an overarching answer to many of these questions? And also, as I was telling during my talk, that I have seen some of the good applications which we rejected. One of the common issue that we have seen is that in some sense, I mean, I'm using it word in the lack of a better word, the lack of maturity. What I mean is that when you are giving a presentation, when you are, meeting people, etc., it should look like that you are an expert in the field. You are already, for the job. Your presentation, as like Anushmita was saying, showing a coherence that, okay, this is how I have done my PhD from there. This is how, I have gone to my postdoc. This is my broader vision. What we say is that, sometimes that, his CV was good, but the presentation was PhD-like. PhD-like meaning did that, got this result, done that, got this result, and some thing just to show I have done too many things. But where is the bigger picture? Where is your vision? So that is something, I think, an overarching thing that you always need to think for your teaching plan, research plan, presentation, how you come across, that you have to behave as if you are already in the business and you have that maturity. So I think that is very important. And what I have seen that Some candidates got rejected because they lacked maturity. Thanks.
In continuation with, Dr. Sen.
Yeah, so I'll just add that excellent point Abhijit made. We get a lot of applications where the research statement is like this. It's 2.5 pages explaining what they did, and maybe half or a quarter page explaining what they want to do next. We are not interested in what you did. We are not looking to hire a PhD student. We have other ways of doing that. We are looking to hire a faculty, and we want to know what you do as a faculty. And there are some egregious applications we have unfortunately seen where we ask, what is your future work? My future work is to continue what I did in my PhD. You can be sure that they don't get any far.
Also, just to add to that point, I mean, now a lot of these various things come into my mind, is that also when people talk about their future research plan, many of the times we see it is so focused on a particular technique or a particular equipment, not a question. But what you need to present is that the question, not that my research plan cannot be to use HPLC or a single cell RNA. It should be a bigger question that you need to kind of present there. So that is one problem we very often see in the presentation. Another problem we see in the presentation is that 10 different things that they talk about their research plan, none of these with a depth. So rather than talking about 10 different things, talk 2 or 3. One is immediate, that you will be doing your first, second year. One is a short term, that is next 5 years. And what is your broad vision? How you see yourself? So I think this balance you need to bring in your presentation.
I would like to also add, so I think when you are also presenting, you should present it like a story. So that, and don't add too much of data, just present what is important for them to understand in which areas you are expert at. You don't have to present all the projects that you have done.
Dr. Sharma, do you want to add something?
Or maybe we can take next question.
Yeah, just a quick thing. So I think most of the points are well articulated by all of the panelists. I think it really pays well to have a short, medium, and long-term vision in your research proposal, and also add. So whatever you're writing in the research proposal, probably if you can articulate that same thing during your presentation, that will really paint a very coherent picture for your application. And I think there is a good chance that the application is successful.
Okay, so maybe we take last question on this theme, that is from Apurva. So considering the 3 years postdoc experience required for the faculty recruitment, how much weighing does postdoc publications have? She says that because sometimes the disease model or some, if you're working on TB or so, it takes longer time. So how in that condition do you prove your relevance or competence in the field? And you make sure that you do reach to the interview stage. So yes, Arijit, Anusmita.
Yeah, so I think what matters is the quality of publications, because sometimes it may so happen that you are joining a project which is, let's say, at a very early stage in the postdoc phase, and to get some result, maybe it takes 1 or 2 years, right? And this is natural, and this happens all the time. So I think if you can show that in that 3-year phase, let's say you got all your publications in the 3rd year, it doesn't matter. You can justify that delay, why the first 2 years you were not able to publish, because you're building the experiment, right? Or you are probably doing something which has taken a large chunk of the time, right? And now the output has started to be generated. So I think as long as you can articulate that fact, that is fine. Again, the quality of the publication will matter rather than the quantity.
Okay, so Abhijit, you want to add? Yeah, sure.
So again, another kind of a comment is that for everyone who is present here, there is a book called PhD is Not Enough. It is a freely available book. Please get the PDF copy. And there is one section specifically dedicated for the postdoctoral work. Please read that one. The thing is that, as Arijit just said, that some work may take longer, right? But then you need to think of that what are the maybe low-hanging fruits so that you can do something to show your productivity when you are applying. So just read that book. I think that will answer many, many questions.
Sure. So now I'll move to the next session, that is challenges after joining the IITs. So Sivaraj asked how the seed money is distributed. Does it vary between departments? How does an applicant learn the limit before or while applying? Such in more funding, the initial support, and how the money is distributed, and how do you make sure that the proposal that, you go ahead. Sushoban.
Yeah, so I actually have my internal grant under review right now. I just submitted them less than a month ago. I would say it's a negotiation between you and the institute and probably the department head. Also, how much do you need, what do you need it for, and what do you have to submit? It's a negotiation at that point. I would not say there are heavy rules. Of course, there are some norms which have to be followed. But it's not the case that everybody gets the same things, exactly the same amount of work. At least at IIT Gandhinagar, if you're an experimentalist and you need more money to buy certain things, it's an acceptable thing to say. I would say one thing you don't want to do is undersell yourself and your basic needs, and then come here and realize you're not able to have any productivity and you didn't take that into account. So if you need something, open a negotiation about it and talk about it. Don't hide from it in the hope to get a job and then not produce it.
Okay, and Pallavi, if you want to add, or Anusmita, since you just recently joined.
Yeah, so in IIT Kanpur, so they'll offer a certain money, which is a base grant, and then after that, based on experimental needs, so you write another grant, and you have to convince the panel that for your experiments, you need these instruments which require this money, and if you convince them, they'll give you. So the institute pays. So it's negotiable and it's doable.
So there is one more question from Neeraj related to this theme. So once I'm recruited as a faculty, what are the challenges in terms of funding, and what is the current scenario in India regarding funding from DBT or DST? And does the institute help in training faculties for submitting the application and to ensure that it is successful to an extent? Maybe Abhijit and Arijit, since you might have experience in this regard now.
So I think if you are faculty at IIT, so I'm assuming your CV etc. are already quite strong. So I think getting the first grant from DST DBT, particularly from DST SARB, that is not that difficult, and they have these various starting research grant, and then so the first grant is easy. After that, it becomes more challenging. And in terms of the institute kind of mentorship, at least in IIT Bombay, there is no such structure where institute directly give the training. However, you get a lot of informal mentorship from your seniors if you are open and if you are approach them. And also, you should not restrict yourself just to in your institute. In today's world, approach anyone and get mentorship. That will be my advice.
Okay, thanks, Abhijit. So now, Baswati, if you could join in.
Yeah, so we are actually running over time. So this was really engaging, and I wish we could continue forever, but we have to end this session. And we look forward to have a similar discussion sometime very soon if our our schedule permits, and we'd love to hear from you again. And thank you for Abhijit, you want to talk? Yeah.
So, I think it is true for others, but I'm just kind of telling for myself that I am available on Twitter, so you can find me there, and you can, if you have further question, you can write there. that I love to answer the question to the students and the young researchers. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is also for our participants and audience, that please, if you want to connect to us or any other panelists, you can follow them in social media. And we tried to cover as many questions as we could, but we sincerely apologize because there are a huge lot of questions, so we couldn't cover everything. So we sincerely apologize for that. And thank you all of you for attending this and making it a success. And please follow us and visit our webpage for upcoming events. Speaking of which, we have 2 upcoming events. The first one is the recruitment drive. It's going to be a virtual recruitment drive where we have around 35 institutions and organizations, and till date we have hosted. And then we have a lot of applications, over 750 applicants, and we have hosted a lot of interviews, and the actual job offers has been made, over 50 job offers and counting. So please keep an eye out, follow our website for updates, and register to attend this event. We also are hosting another in-person event in September, which is the annual event of Sci-ROI. So we are going in person after a long break. So we hope to see you all if you can make it. It's a weekend, so if you can just quickly book your tickets and visit us. So just keep an eye out for update in our web pages, and the registration will be we will always update our news about the registration and other things. And thank you again. Thanks all of you, and have a good night, a good evening, a good day, depending on which part of the globe you are. And thanks. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.